I think what you just described there is a system and a methodology that enables like a sales director or a CEO of an organization, particularly in a small or medium enterprise, to focus on what they're good at, and that is working on their business, fine-tuning their products, doing the stuff they need to build awareness in their marketplace. Knowing that they've got a partner like you guys to come in and actually work on, I guess, the engine of how that's going to
Mhm.
deliver value to the market. So getting the people into the organization,
Yeah.
with understanding, with appreciation, with the right, I guess, characteristics they're looking for, and
Mhm.
then give them the necessary ramping period to get competent to
Mhm.
increase their propensity to stay and provide real value to the organization. Because as you're describing it, I'm thinking just my own experience in terms of onboarding reps into a B2B space. Yeah,
Mhm.
they go through a recruitment process, and yes, it might be based on resumes, and they might do some disc profiling or Myers-Briggs and stuff like that. But the real onboarding process, it's almost, well, welcome here, welcome to the organization. Here's your desk, here's your computer, here's your mobile phone, here's your pass. You've got great sales experience. There's your account base.
Crush it. Yeah.
Go and get it done, right?
Yeah. And
So it's
what's
not necessarily
really,
preparing them for success.
yeah, and what's really important too, like, I mean, if you're paying a fat salary and these kind of things and the rep has security, then, they're not going to be too upset. But, the reality is like a top performer, when they come on board, they want the best stuff. Like, I want
Yeah.
good systems, I want good leadership, but, that's what they want. And also the kind of the average Joe or the quota producing sales rep, they need good stuff to have a chance. Maybe the baller guy like you and me, we can just go into any type of opportunity and wing it and see success because
Mm.
we're the top 1 to 5 percenters. But, the average person who's still decent, maybe in the top 20%, who's a quota producing rep, they don't have that skill set, that figured out factor, and they actually need good systems to have a chance at success. And so the average Joes or Janes, they need good systems, and the top producers, they they want good systems even though they don't maybe perfectly need it to figure out the position. And so I found that to be super important as well. When the people come on board, you want them to be blown away by your process. Like, this is the best freaking onboarding process I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And it continues from the selling of the recruiting process. They show up to new hire orientation, they start to dive in, and they're like, I'm glad I committed to this organization because they have their crap together.
And environment is everything, and culture is everything. And if you've got an organization that has a great product, has a great offering in the marketplace, but
Yeah.
recognize they need to bring great people in to best represent them in that
Mhm.
marketplace, I look at it and think, okay, we can go down the path of having a fixed cost where we want to pay 401ks, we want to pay salaries, we want to pay bonuses and stuff like that. And that's all built into I guess, the cost of doing business. But if I'm
Mhm.
bringing in commission only salespeople, that needs to be there's certain characteristic of person that be attracted to that. If that's the case, all the money that I would typically spend on investing in employee costs, I can now spend on creating an environment that is attractive to those and give them every opportunity of being successful as quickly as possible. So how do I
Yeah.
set these people up for success? As quickly as we possibly can. The question I was going to ask you then, and it might be, it depends on industry and so forth, and I totally get that. In terms of the ramp up from the process you've described through going through the group process where they understand all the nuances, they have full disclosure in terms of what the organization is looking like, what the comp plan is, and they then filter down into the one-on-one process. Is there a typical timeline by which you have somebody that's coming in, having gone through that recruiting process to where they're now competent from the perspective of the organization? That is, they're hitting quota, they're making progress, they're hitting the ground running. And so, how
Mhm.
much emphasis is then placed with the onboarding process for the organization to spend and time in helping this person become successful as quickly as possible? Because you mentioned before, well, you sell this stuff and you only get paid when the customer pays the bill. So that could be a 90 day turnaround time. So you're
Yeah.
sitting there thinking, well, hang on, how am I going to eat for the next 90 days?
Yeah, and there's ways to kind of improve. So, like our B2B sales cycle, 80% of our deals happen within 30 days of what we call a presentation meeting. But a lot of B2B sales cycles are going to be 2, 3, 6, maybe 12 months. So every sales cycle is a little bit different. In terms of, so it's hard to answer because of the nature of that. The way to look at it as a company is you go, okay, what's kind of our bare minimum expectation from an income perspective? Let's say that, is 8 grand a month or 2 grand a week, which is 104K per year. You think about, okay, conservatively, what does it look like for, the average Joe or the top 20 percenter, right? Anybody that's not a top 20 percenter, which is not really impressive. Anybody in the bottom 80% is just typically not going to work out, especially in like a commission-based sales opportunity because it's so
Yeah.
challenging. So when I say average Joe, I mean like in that 20%-ish range. But you think about, okay, what does it look like for that average Joe to ramp up into our position to get to hypothetically, 8K per month. If that's 90 days, then that would be the answer for me. It depends on the sales cycle. But, in onboarding, those first 2 weeks, I look at it as like almost like it's an initial onboarding and training and also a screening tool, which is even more important when you're scaling up a commission-based sales team because regardless of how good the systems are, and we have really good systems for our clients, there's always going to be attrition, and so you want to
Mm.
protect you want to maximize the opportunity and give reps all that they need to have a chance at success while reducing the leadership workload, and then making sure, especially for the small business owner who doesn't have a ton of leadership yet, maybe you want to. We look at the initial 2 weeks as like initial onboarding and seeing who's really bought in and can follow the system. And post the 2 weeks, if they follow the tasks, typically there's 20, 25, 30, 35 tasks per week. So 50 plus tasks in 2 weeks. If they follow the system, then they're more worth like one-on-one time, as an example.
Hmm.
And, so I think I'm getting off track a little bit, but the first 2 weeks is, kind of like a initial onboarding, going through the university, the role play, and a lot of like downtime work to protect leadership's pay, although they're plugging into sales team meetings and getting that culture experience and those kind of things. And then whoever kind of pops out at the other end, after the 2 weeks, then it's kind of like the ramp up time. At least that's how I look at it. So in the 90 days, it'd be 2 weeks initial and then month one, month two, month three, ramping up into 8K plus per month income. And there was a leadership time investment thing or something like that you asked. I didn't answer it technically, but I was thinking about, it depends on the leadership team, right? If you have a small business owner, they don't have their full-time leadership yet, then the
Yeah.
time investment into reps is just going to be less because I've got to run a company. And so in that case, you need to have a very, really exciting future org chart built. So, hey, we're going from 2 million to 10 million. Here's the sales organization that's going to be required to get there. Here's the few leadership opportunities required to build that organization. And those are the few opportunities available for reps that start in the rep position. And you need to like have a very objective path to earn those positions. And then once there's a leader in place, you can delegate leadership responsibilities to them and they can increase the time investment per sales rep, which will increase rep engagement and production and retention and those kind of things. So it depends on the sales cycle and then also the availability of the leader.
Awesome. Hey, Ryan, been a great conversation. Greatly appreciate you jumping on. It's been a great conversation, and thank you for being a guest on the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast.
Thank you, Darren. Appreciate it.